Hey, welcome to Next Level Method Podcast. I'm Richard Ryerson.
And I'm Matt Lillie.
And we're here to help you take your life to the next level. Let's get started.
So today on the show, we had Dr. Steven Gundry. He's been on the show before and just a phenomenal resource about health, gut health specifically, the microbiome. But I just love having him on the show. This is his second time, and he's just so passionate about what he does, but he's a researcher, so he really studies what's going on inside the human body and how to affect it in a very positive way. He's written several books. Two of his latest, Plant Paradox and Energy Paradox, are bestsellers, and he's just getting ready to release in March, Unlocking the Keto Code. He has supplements. He sees patients, which, interestingly enough, during the podcast, he talks about that literally he loses money on his clinic seeing patients, but that's his way of kind of giving back and also of researching what people are experiencing so that he can then put that in the books, create supplements around that to help people live better lives. So great conversation. I was very fired up and had a lot of energy through the whole podcast. So certainly please listen. It's wonderful. He actually gives us some very specific, very prescriptive supplements that we should be taking that I just love the clarity he put around that. So that's early on in the podcast. So be sure to listen to that. It will actually, this podcast is actually going to improve your life from a health standpoint. And so I think I would highly recommend it. So again, thank you for listening to the Next Level Method podcast. You can download Next Level Method podcasts wherever your podcasts are available or everywhere podcasts are available. We certainly appreciate you subscribing, liking, commenting. That helps us continue to grow the great work that we're doing here at Next Level Method. So look forward to producing more podcasts for you, and let's get on with the show. So Dr. Gundry, welcome back to the show.
Matt, thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. I'm so excited. I'm so grateful that you decided to come back on so quickly. I know we had you on a couple months ago, and want to get it. It was just so profound, just the hour that we spent last time together. So I wanted to have you back on to just expand on our conversation from last time about kind of what you do and your passion, and then also get into kind of on the passion side, what your experience of kind of transitioning from a very successful heart surgeon into a space that was a little bit, especially when you did it, a lot more unknown on what it was and what you'd be doing and kind of the uncertainty of that. So first, I'd like to just start with, you've got several books out. You've got Plant Paradox. You've got Energy Paradox. Sounds like you've got another book coming out that we'll talk about later. You have a full-time practice where you see patients, but primarily
6 days a week.
6 days. That's a song. That's a Beatles song, isn't it?
Beatles, yeah.
That's right.
It was 8 days a week.
8 days a week. Sorry, not 6. Okay, fair enough.
I feel like I work 8 days a week.
Yes. But, tell me what you do in your practice. I mean, kind of what's your passion, and I'm familiar with you, and I'm sure most of our listeners are, but for somebody who's never heard of Dr. Steven Gundry, what do you do there at your practice, or what are you passionate about?
Well, so I practice what I call restorative medicine. Some people have coined it functional medicine. I have no idea what functional medicine means, but restorative medicine is really based on Hippocrates' original principles. And Hippocrates said that all of us have, it translates from Greek into be green life force energy. And I know that sounds very California speak, but what he proposed, and I think he's right, and I've written about this in multiple books, is that we have, let's call it the green life force energy, that wants us to have perfect health, that wants you to be a thriving organism, and that there are external forces, external factors that suppress that green life force energy from expressing itself. And Hippocrates believed that the physician's role was to basically be a detective, to find out what these external factors were that were suppressing green life force energy and teach the patient to remove them. And then the body, this life force energy, would take over and you would attain what was rightfully yours, perfect health. And as silly as that sounds, that's what I do. I'm a detective, and I find out what these external forces, primarily through diet and things that people are eating, and remove the troublemakers, and the patient restores themselves. I'll give you an example. I was talking yesterday on the phone to a woman from the Midwest who came to me about a year and a half ago with multiple autoimmune diseases that had been dismissed. She was exhausted, had chronic fatigue, had Hashimoto's thyroiditis, low thyroid, and through a series of tests, blood tests, looking for leaky gut, we determined that indeed she wasn't crazy. She wasn't a middle-aged housewife with 5 kids, who ought to be tired. She had, biomarkers that this was going on, and we tested her for the foods that she was sensitive to, and we asked her to remove these foods. And then about every 6 months, we would reconvene, redo these blood tests and redo her autoimmune markers. And this time around, she really no longer has any leaky gut. Her autoimmune markers are gone. She feels great. And what she said, well, I can't thank you enough. You did this. And I said, well, no, actually, I didn't do this. You did this. And she said, well, if I hadn't heard of you, if you hadn't done all this, this wouldn't have happened to me. And, I think the best expression, and I think it was Buddha, I can show you the path, but it's you who have to walk it. And I think we both came to an agreement. Yeah, all I did was show her the path.
Right.
And like Hippocrates, she did it. She followed the path, and her body healed itself, and that's what's so really cool.
And so completely reversed the disease at that point, not just symptomatic, but it reversed the actual disease.
Yeah, Hippocrates said all disease begins in the gut. And how the guy knew this 2,500 years ago, I have to have rather sophisticated tests to prove to somebody that their disease is coming from a leaky gut. But he knew it.
Huh. And so when you say these tests, because I don't always, but today I'm definitely putting myself in the position of being like a patient if I'm talking to you. So kind of when you say tests, it sounds like you're running food allergy tests. Is that what you're doing?
No.
Okay. All right.
No. Interesting enough, in my clinic for years we did food allergy testing, and I was never impressed. It gave us any utility, even though I did them. And because food allergy testing looks for, we have multiple types of immunoglobulins. Just to give you an example, with COVID now, most people know we're doing antibody testing, and we're looking for IgG, capital G, antibodies to COVID. And we also look for IgM antibodies. IgE is the antibody that fosters allergies. There's also IgA, and this isn't going to be a lecture, but there's IgA that lines the surface.
I was going to say, if there's going to be a test, I'm definitely going to fail at the end.
So long story short, a few years ago, companies like Vibrant America that I work with said, we've got all this wrong. We shouldn't be looking at allergies to foods. If someone actually has a leaky gut, and there are actual spaces between the wall of the gut, whole food particles that would normally never get into our system, they would be broken down into simple sugars, simple amino acids, simple fats. But literally whole food particles, let's use for example, broccoli, could in fact get through the wall of the gut. And the immune system would say, what the heck, I have never seen a piece of broccoli in here. That's foreign, and I'm going to make an antibody to it, because the next time I see it, I'm going to attack it and call the troops to attack it. And so, just to back up, most people who read The Plant Paradox or who've come to my office with an autoimmune disease, and about 80% of my practice now is autoimmune diseases, They resolve their autoimmune disease just simply following the yes list of foods and the no list of foods. But about 10% of my patients, despite being saints, said, we still got markers of leaky gut and we still got markers of autoimmune disease. They're much better, but they're not gone. So I started saying, hey, let's look at these food sensitivities and see what your immune system is seeing. And when we started literally doing that and asking people to believe the results, which is salesmanship, I guess, then we started seeing all these crazy things resolve that I wouldn't have imagined. And so we look at now food sensitivities, and that's just opened up this window into what's literally leaking through somebody's wall of their gut, getting past our intact defense system in our gut.
And so if I'm hearing you correctly, then most of your patients just adhere to the list that you already have, the prescriptive list that I'm assuming is in the Plant Paradox
in all
box.
the books.
In all the books.
All the books.
So you have your set standard list of here's what you can eat and here's what you shouldn't eat.
Right, and most importantly, the rule number one in all the books is what I tell you not to eat.
Right.
It's far more important than what I tell you to eat.
Gotcha. And so then what exactly, so when you see people in the office, I guess you're just educating them on what's already in the book. They just need some assistance beyond the book?
Well, when we see them in the office, we get some rather fascinating, sophisticated blood tests that insurance pays for. We look at most markers for autoimmune diseases. We look for insulin resistance, pre-diabetes. We look for various other inflammatory conditions, and we do the regular stuff as well. And so they're
getting a full panel then.
They're full Monty.
Yeah, okay.
Far more than what they'd ever get in their doctor's office.
Got it. And so you're really looking at blood work and what's affecting them in a broader, in a more specific sense, I guess, to that actual individual.
Correct.
That's very cool. And then once you find that out, then you prescribe, I guess, some type of eating or in your point, non-eating regime. Is that
non-eating regime? Yeah. And then we, tailor make a supplement regimen. And quite frankly, even though I manufacture supplements, we'll send people to Costco. We'll send people to Trader Joe's. We'll point something out on Amazon. In fact, interestingly enough, I don't have any of my products in either of my two offices. People go, well, I want Total Restore. I said, can't get it here. And they said, well, what kind of crazy doctor are you? Aren't you supposed to be selling me your supplements? I said, look, I'm selling you good health. And am I proud of my supplements? Absolutely. Do I take my supplements? Absolutely. But look, if all you can afford is Costco right now, here's the ones at Costco that I know will work for you, and so on.
So you still give them the actual brands, because I think that's the, for a lot of people who are just new to supplements or new to vitamins, or maybe have been taking them a long time but just don't understand, there's a lot of stuff out there that's just crap, right? I mean, that's
true.
Full of fillers and full of, it's almost,
there's a lot of junk out there.
There's a lot of junk because it's not regulated, right? I mean, basically you can put about anything in anything and call it XYZ, right?
And that's one of the things at Gundry MD that I insisted on. I design all my supplements, and no one else says, let's put this and this and that. No, I go, hey, I want, I'm going to put this, and this, and then we send it to a third party tester to say, is what I said is in here, and is there anything else in there that shouldn't be in there? And and if it is, it's gone and it's thrown out.
Right.
And
exactly.
Nobody's required to do that.
And so, just for if you took a bell curve and said for general overall health, kind of anybody off the street, what would you typically recommend as far as supplementation, just for the general, the average person? Well, I won't say average because there is no average, but you understand what I'm saying. If I walked in your office, you didn't do blood work, you haven't done any of this stuff. I said, this is kind of my experience. I'm a little fatigued. I'm a little, and I'd like more energy. What's the basis or the basics?
Well, so the average American is woefully deficient in vitamin D3. I've yet to see someone with leaky gut who isn't deficient in vitamin D. Vitamin D, there are now 18 papers showing the higher your vitamin D level, the safer you are from COVID. And if you catch COVID, it will be a milder form of the disease than something that's going to kill you. So vitamin D, every human being should be taking at least 5,000 international units of vitamin D. That's 125 daily.
Right, I use.
And it goes up from there.
And so you're saying when it goes up from there, 5,000 is where we start.
That's where we start.
Got it.
Most of my autoimmune patients, we start at 10,000 international units. I have some autoimmune patients on 40,000 international units a day.
Wow.
Now, the University of California, San Diego has put out some very good research showing that the average American should take 9,400 international units a day. There's been some papers out that up to 40,000 international units a day will not produce vitamin D toxicity. And so I personally have never seen vitamin D toxicity, and I've been testing it for over 20 years now.
Huh. And so when you say, because I've heard these higher amounts, but I've heard it for limited periods of time. Are you saying literally 10,000 IUs every day, 365?
Oh yeah, most of my autoimmune patients are on at least 10,000 international units.
But that's every day. That's not like for a week or 2 weeks.
I used to take 5,000 and kept my vitamin D level about 120 nanograms per milliliter. When COVID started, I went to 10,000. I've been on 10,000 now for basically 2 years.
Okay, that's great.
And I'm not dead.
Well, that's good. I'm glad, because if you were, this would actually it would be
shorten the podcast.
Well, it would be. I think we'd go longer because I'd have a lot more questions if you were like on. We literally talked to a lady earlier today that had 2 near-death experiences, and it was very fascinating. And so I would love to. If you do die, please come back on the show. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm coming back as my dog. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, that's great.
Or one of my dogs.
So vitamin D. What else would be everybody should be doing this?
And everybody should be doing fish oil. And the important part of fish oil, and you can now get the important parts of fish oil in algae-based oils.
Right.
And the one you want is DHA. And the reason for that is our brains are about 70% fat. So if you want to call somebody a fathead, I'll back you. The half of the fat in your brain is DHA. And as I've written about in the longevity paradox, we know that people who have the highest amounts of DHA in their bloodstream, and we can measure this with a blood test, have the biggest brains as they age and have the biggest areas of memory, the hippocampus. And people who have the lowest amounts of DHA have the most literally shrunken brains and the smallest areas of memory. So, Mom was right when she said fish was brain food. She didn't know why she was right. The problem is it's almost impossible to get enough DHA by eating fish. Just 2 days ago, I had a patient went on a wild salmon, stopped his fish oil, and the level was perfect. Started eating wild salmon every day for 6 months before his next blood test. And his omega-3 index had fallen half of what it was. Wow. He said, but you don't understand. I'm eating wild salmon every day. And I said, yeah, you don't understand. There's actually not much DHA in wild salmon. He said, but that's where you get the omega-3s. I said, nah, that's not where you get it. Sorry, salmon's kind of a lousy source.
No, because it actually doesn't come from cod. Is it cod or worse?
No, actually, cod's even worse.
Is it worse? Okay.
Yeah, sardines and herring are the highest sources of DHA.
And then,
in fact, the only people I've ever seen have a sufficient omega-3 index eating fish are daily sardine and herring eaters. Everybody else,
but they don't get very many kisses. I'll tell you that right now, because my wife loves sardines, and I'm telling you, on those days she eats sardines. Not as much on the kissing thing, so you got to balance that. Okay, so DHA through fish oil, and also you said now it's allergy, or not allergy,
It's algae-based.
algae-based.
So, right. I take care of a lot of vegetarians and vegans,
right.
and they consume a lot of flax oil, which is a short-chain omega-3 fat. And none of them have adequate omega-3 index because we don't convert short-chain omega-3 fats into long-chain omega-3 fats, which is DHA. We don't have the enzyme system to do it. And so all these people, the beauty is, though, there's no excuse because you can use algae-based fish oil products. I make one at Gundry MD, Ultimate Plant Omegas.
Oh, excellent. I love that. Okay, so vitamin D, DHA, or through fish oil, any other must-haves?
Timed release vitamin C. And you want to take 1,000 milligrams of timed release vitamin C twice a day. The reason for that is we are one of the few animals that lack the gene. There's a series of 5 genes that manufactures vitamin C from glucose, from sugar. And we have 4 of those genes, but the 5th gene is actually turned off. It's called a ghost gene. Monkeys and guinea pigs are the only animals that can't manufacture vitamin C. And it turns out that vitamin C is essential for collagen production. It's essential for actually keeping your blood vessels flexible, repairing your blood vessels. And there's some very good studies showing that you can breed a mouse to carry our vitamin C deficient genes, and that mouse will live half as long as a normal mouse. But if you put vitamin C in the water of that mutant mouse, the mouse will live just as long as his normal brethren. And so the problem with vitamin C, it's a water-soluble vitamin, and if we swallow vitamin C, it'll be gone in 3 to 4 hours. So you've got to have a continuous supply. Now, the other option that some people like to do is you buy those 500 milligram vitamin C tablets, the chewable ones, and you carry some in your pockets, and 4 times a day you munch on one, and that'll do the same trick.
And is there any? Do you sell those? And 2, is there a brand that you would say? And we're not being paid to mention brands today, but I just want to be helpful to people listening.
Number 1, my time release vitamin C is on the way. It's not ready yet, but there'll be some interesting other boosters in it besides just that. But, with vitamin C, yes, you can get rosehip vitamin C. You can get Achiro cherry vitamin C. But ascorbic acid will work just fine. So you don't have
just a reputable brand then.
I mean, go to Trader Joe's, go to Walmart, go to Costco.
Okay. All right. Okay. So those 3, any others?
No, that's enough.
Okay, perfect. Good, because simple is better for me. But so excellent. So, and thank you for that education right there, because I think I definitely is a great reminder for me that I'm not doing enough of these things. And 2, I think it just helps all of our listeners understand that this doesn't have to be super complex, right? You just, especially start focusing on the basics, start taking, it's steps. It's not 0 to 100 necessarily. But so how long ago was this? You were and still are, I guess, but you were practicing heart surgeon at Loma Linda. And if I can say, and I don't ever say this on the podcast, but you're kind of a big deal. Right? I mean, you and I had talked pre-show last time that you'd been to Wichita because not only were you a heart surgeon, but you specialize in peds, right? Pediatric
heart transplant, children's heart surgery, and also adult surgery. In fact, if you saw my Instagram, I think last week, I got a letter from a mother of a newborn baby who I had done a heart transplant on 26 years ago. And she sent me his wedding picture, he and his bride. And, he's 26 years old. He's now a firefighter. And she was just reminiscing and thanking me for 26 years ago, giving this kid a life, and now he's married and gainfully employed. So yeah, that's what I used to do. And yeah, I was one of the world's most famous heart surgeons. Invented a bunch of devices that are still used in heart surgery to keep people alive. And I pioneered minimally invasive heart surgery. And my now late partner, Leonard Bailey, and I pioneered infant and pediatric heart transplantation.
So you were highly successful, and obviously,
Yep.
I think, and I know I have physician business partners and just a lot of friends who are physicians, and I know that all of the ones for the most part, have ever associate with, or I would call friends, they're in medicine because they believe in helping people, right? That's their fundamental drive, and if they are really driven, typically they work a lot of hours, but they also, typically there's compensation commensurate with that passion. So they usually, do fairly well financially. And so I've got to think at your level of profession and where you were at, you were doing, I'm assuming, pretty well financially, pretty secure, kind of had all the bells, kind of had all the stuff, I'm assuming. I don't know your backstory because that's why I wanted to have you back on. But, here you're a heart surgeon. And I remember from last time and reading some of your bio for today's show that, you were going along, you were highly successful, and then you ran into a patient who you can't operate on because he's actually I'm assuming, obese.
No, this guy was, well, he was obese. He was named Big Ed by me.
Right.
But Big Ed was a 48-year-old guy from Miami who had inoperable coronary artery disease. And you couldn't put stents in, you couldn't do bypasses because there wasn't any place to land because it was all crud. And this guy, like many other people, would go around the country looking for idiots like me to operate on him. I was very, very famous for taking cases nobody else wanted. And this guy had gone around the country and spent 6 months going from center to center, and everybody turned him down. And he arrived at Loma Linda, and I looked at him and I said, well, look, I looked at your angiogram from 6 months ago, and I'm sorry, I agree with everybody else, I can't help you. Then he said, well, listen, I've been on a diet, I've lost 45 pounds in 6 months, and this guy was 265 when I met him. And he said, I've gone to a health food store and I'm taking all these supplements, maybe I did something in here. And I go, yeah, right, okay, good for you for losing weight, and supplements make expensive urine, which I literally believed. And he said, well, come on, why don't I came all this way, let's get a new angiogram and look at my heart. So I roll my eyes. I said, okay. So we get a new angiogram, and in 6 months' time, this guy has cleaned out 50% of the blockages in his coronaries. They're gone.
Right.
And I'm going, well, that's impossible. I've been taught that that's impossible. And here I am, I'm staring at it. And I'm going, all right, tell me about this diet that you've been on. And he starts talking. And I had this special major as an undergraduate at Yale University where I had to have a thesis that you could take a grade A, manipulate its diet, manipulate its environment, and prove that you'd arrive at a human being. And that was literally what I did for 4 years. And I actually defended my thesis and got an honors, and I gave it to my parents. And so he starts talking. I went, holy cow, that's my thesis of the human diet. And you've been doing it. And what was so poignant was, I was 70 pounds overweight and running 30 miles a week and going to the gym 1 hour a day. And so I called my parents in San Diego and I said, hey, you have my thesis? And they said, oh yeah, it's here in the shrine.
Yeah.
So I said, send it up. So I put myself on my thesis, and I lost 70 pounds my first year. And subsequently I lost another 20, and I've kept it off now for 25 years. So long story short, I was very famous for protecting the heart during heart surgery, and I would put all these funny little chemicals in this preservative and squirt it into the heart veins and arteries. And Big Ed starts showing me his supplements, and I'm going, well, wait a minute. 3 of those things I'm shoving down people's coronary arteries during heart surgery. And it never occurred to me to swallow the dumb things. So I started swallowing a bunch of supplements while I was doing this. And so very rapidly, it was very clear what was happening to me, and my patients would notice. And so I said, what I'm going to do? I'm going to operate on you. I'm going to do a coronary bypass. But here's the deal. Here's a list of things I don't want you to eat. Here's a list I want you to eat. Go to Costco, go to Trader Joe's, buy these supplements, and that way I can keep you away from me for the rest of your life. And they did, and people would call and say, I got really low blood pressure, what should I do? And I'd go, well, heck, you're on 3 blood pressure medicines, let's stop one of them. And, a few weeks would go by, oh, I'm really dizzy, my blood pressure's low. Well, let's stop another one. Or somebody be on insulin for their diabetes, and oh, my blood sugar's really low. Well, cut your insulin out, and so on. And so all these people, and people would say, I used to have arthritis, and it's funny, my hands don't hurt anymore. So after about a year of doing this, taking people off their medications, stop being diabetic, stop canceling hip operations, I looked in the mirror one Friday. It's appropriate because my wife and I still call it Black Friday.
Right.
Before I was going into work, and I said, I've got this all wrong. I shouldn't operate on people and then teach them how to eat to avoid me in the future. I should teach them how to eat, and then I'll never, have to operate on them. Now, for a heart surgeon, it's just really a dumb thing to decide to do.
Yeah.
But I resigned my position, at the height of my career.
And and this was what was so fascinating, and this is why I'm so thankful that you came back on, because this conversation, this is where we ended the conversation last time. So if you haven't watched the previous podcast with Dr. Gundry, please go back. Yeah, go back and watch that. It'll give you context for this one. Yeah, so you're having this kind of realization that you want to help people before, instead of cutting on them, you want to give them a solution for life versus just kind of taking care of something today that they're going to in a way re-injure or typically you're right.
Oh yeah, one of the reasons I was a famous heart surgeon is I would do lots of re-operations on people, 3rd-time operations, 4th-time operations. And it gets more and more difficult every time. And we knew that, the blood vessels that we're going to sew into your heart probably last 5, 7, if we're lucky, 10 years, but then you'll be back.
Right.
Because everybody knows that coronary artery disease is progressive. We can slow it down, but you'll be back.
Right, and so you kind of had you literally had a reoccurring patient base, of coming. So you literally just resigned. You just said, you literally just resigned, because this is just fascinating to me. Because there's not, I think a lot of us walk through life and we're comfortable enough that we don't necessarily make those big decisions. And I think that, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it seems to me at that point that's a big decision point for you to just resign, kind of cold turkey. Is that?
Well, so, and I won't tell you the hospital corporation.
Fair enough.
But a big hospital corporation nearby said, I was talking to them. They were trying to recruit me as a surgeon, and a lot of people tried to recruit me as a surgeon. And I said, well, look, what I really want to do is I want to have an institute where we teach people how to eat. We want to practice, preventative cardiology.
Right.
And they say, oh, yeah, okay, we can do that. We're going to build you a building. Great. You come out here. We want your name.
Right.
But that's what you get to do. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And I said, wow, okay. So no sooner did I do that than this corporation got into major financial difficulty, and I won't go into it. It was
right. Yeah.
They they literally almost went bankrupt.
Right.
And, you know, they called me and said, you know, the Institute, not going to happen. You know, the buildings, not going to happen. But you're under contract and you have to stay here for 5 years. Have a nice day.
Oh my gosh.
And I went, well, what are you talking about? And I said, yeah, you're supposed to deliver. They said, well, there's no money, we can't. But you have to deliver to us. And I mean, we were in litigation, but this is a very large corporation. And anyhow, so there I am, you know, saying, well, okay, if you're not going to do this, I'm going to do this,
right,
because this is what I believe in. So, you know, I literally kind of, you know, hung up my shingle, and I'd say, look, you know, I'm a researcher, and let me get blood drawn on you every 3 months. And I draw my own blood, which is kind of a very famous heart surgeon drawing blood. And I'd say, you know, I want to tell you what to eat, not to eat, you know, do what I was doing in Loma Linda, and insurance will pay for it. And let's see what happens. You're going to be my research project.
Right.
After a number of years, it was very clear from blood work that, you know, what I postulated was actually true, and I started publishing papers about this. But you're right. Academic heart surgeons make a decent living. They're not living in palaces, but make a decent living, have a nice car. But teaching people how to eat doesn't make any money, as I was soon to find out.
Right.
And you know, it's an insurance-based practice.
Right.
And
Well, the whole medical,
practice.
the whole medical, thing set up on insurance and Medicaid.
And
Medicare, right?
I even took Medicaid,
Right.
you know, Medi-Cal, because I think people actually deserve health care, no matter their
Sure.
income.
Yeah.
So, long story short, we had, I thought, a quite good retirement program that we, you know, put aside. And lo and behold, with each passing year, we continued to, you know, dip into this. And, you know, I had an attorney who was actually a patient, and he says, you know, I don't know how you're going to stay afloat, but, you know, good for you, because, you know, you're doing the right thing, and I can't believe, you know, you just keep doing this. And he says, what an idiot. You know, I know you want to do the right thing, but you're going to starve to death.
Right.
You know, he keep counseling me. He says, you stop this, but good for you, because you're doing the right thing.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it got to the point where, my credit was so horrible that I couldn't even get a loan for a car, or
Wow.
couldn't even lease a car, and we had to get my parents in their mid-80s to, you know, lease a rundown old car for
fascinating.
my wife and I. And we lost our houses.
Really?
We started renting.
Wow.
And,
So,
you know.
so what? Let me stop
And
you
you
there.
go,
if
what?
don't mind. What? So what's going through your mind? And I think you shared a little bit about what was going through your wife's mind, but feel free to elaborate. But what was going through your mind at that point? I mean, so you've lost your houses. You're, you know, driving a car that your parents helped you get. I mean, so what's happening inside your? I just think it's so important when we're visiting and sharing with other people, so they understand some of the psychology that's happening in your head, because you believe in something, you believe that's the right thing to do, but financially it's not working, and you're getting to the point where literally it sounds like you're down to kind of you're running on fumes at this point. So what are you thinking? I guess what's going through your head?
Well, simultaneous with this is, you know, all this information is being accrued from my patients. And it's very, very clear that, you know, this works. It's correct that everything I postulated is true. And I was beginning to get notoriety. I'd written a book that we had thought was going to be a bestseller, and then it was released when the Great Recession happened in 2008.
Right.
And we were kind of pointing, when that book hits, and we were assured, oh man, it's going to be a monster bestseller.
Right.
It's all going to come home to roost.
Right.
And it didn't come home to roost. So then you go, okay, when's it going to happen? And you just see in your patient's eyes, you start getting these success stories of, my fibromyalgia went away, my psoriasis is gone, my diabetes is gone, and you just go, I can't turn my back on this. And I had opportunities to go and, do heart surgery at numerous places around the country. I'll never forget, I got an offer to place in the northern Midwest, and a nice position. And my wife said, I'm going to miss you. And, and so, and the point was, as poor as we were, that, we had chosen this lifestyle. And then, my attorney took me to meet with bankruptcy attorneys. And we walked out of there, and they said, okay, come on back, we'll draw up the papers. And, I'm in my 60s at this point. And, the retirement's gone. Each month we're trying to figure out which creditor to pay. The IRS wants their money, and there is none. And, I said, I'm sorry, that is not me. I am not going to declare bankruptcy. I'll work harder. So I started working on the weekends. I started working on Saturdays and Sundays. And so I'd see patients all day Saturday and half day Sundays. And that got us just where we could stay afloat. But the reason I started seeing people on Saturdays and Sundays is I needed the money.
Interesting.
And now, I still see patients on Saturday and Sunday, and I don't need the money, but I still see them because I need to see them to learn more from them. And I know it sounds funny, but I have this, thank goodness, a constant desire to learn.
Yeah.
And the reason I started seeing patients on the weekends is because I would not declare bankruptcy.
Right.
And that just kept us above.
And then over time, over time, then the practice picked up, and
No, I mean, really, thankfully. So I got a following in what I did, and certain people with some influence were sent to me, and they had a good success. And then I was invited to speak at a meeting called Summit. And Summit was actually for pretty much young entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And Summit Mountain is in Utah. And so they do a weekend retreat in the summer, and they invite a few people to speak, and there's maybe, 50, 60 people in the audience. And it's a 3-day meeting, and the third day, we're at a reception, and this guy, unshaven, scraggly hair, does not look like he has two nickels to rub together, as we used to say.
Yep.
Comes up, he said, Dr. Gundry, that was really fascinating what you were talking about. And he said, have you ever thought about having a line of supplements? And my wife and I rolled our eyes because many, many companies had come to me wanting me to put my name on their supplements or endorsing their supplements. And I always turned them down because I knew exactly by that point in my career what should be in a supplement, the mixture, the combination, the amount. And they wouldn't let me do that. So we had and we get excited. Oh, this supplement company, this is going to be, now we're going to finally, be on Easy Street. And so we were rolling our eyes, and I said, don't even bother. I said, if I'm going to do supplements, I have to be in control of the formulas.
Right.
And he looks, and he doesn't blink. He says, well, yeah, you could do that. And so my wife says, okay, fine. How are you going to sell them? What's your distribution? And he said, well, we produce 45-minute infomercials on the internet. And she said, right. Who's going to watch a 45-minute infomercial on the internet? And he said, well, you might be surprised. It works. And so I said, well, maybe we should talk. So we arranged a meeting at Golden Hippo, which is my parent company. And Golden Hippo at that time was located in Van Nuys, California, in a neighborhood where, quite frankly, I was afraid to park my car because I really didn't think it was going to be there, even though it was a junker. Right. It was that bad. Right. And we go into this little building, and there's 20-year-old 30-somethings hacking away at computers, and we have this meeting, and I said, so what do you guys do? And they said, well, we make avatars of our doctors, and we make a product, and we make a 45-minute infomercial about this. And I said, really? And I said, and people watch this? And he says, oh yeah, our big brand is Beverly Hills MD. And I said, So I went back to my attorney, and I said, here's the deal. And he said, well, look, you got nothing. This sounds crazy, but maybe it's legit. And so we did, and it turns out, the rest is history. Gundry MD is now, as far as we know, the largest internet supplement company in the United States. Over 90 million people have watched my 45-minute infomercials.
Wow.
Yeah. And so my wife's question of, well, who's going to watch a 45-minute infomercial? Yeah. In fact, I was on William Shatner's TV show last week, Star Trek, Captain Kirk.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And it turns out he's a huge fan. Oh, nice. And he could cite line and verse from my infomercials. And he says, love your shows, love your commercials. And so William Shatner's watching. Right. But the other thing we did was most of these started with an actor reading your lines and avatars. Right. And I said, I've got people calling the office saying somebody's impersonating you because that's not you. And I said, we shouldn't do that. I should do this. I wrote the script, for crying out loud. Right. And they said, well, we've never done that, but we should do it. And so we ran it with my voice, and they said, oh my gosh, sales are up 50% with your voice. And they said, would you mind doing some more? So now I'm a TV star. So
there you go. You're an internet celebrity.
And it's all because this guy said, hey, you ever thought of selling supplements?
And I think there's a lot of stuff in there in your story, and that's why I really was excited to have you come back on, because I think one is just being open to new opportunities, but also verifying that those opportunities are also legitimate opportunities, right? Because to your point, there was some flakes along the way that came in and tried to sell you on just kind of being the pitch man or selling your credentials, and ultimately you still stuck to your guns and held on to your passion, held on to your purpose, and didn't sell out for that. and said, no, I want to do it the way that I know it needs to be done. And I think so for myself and for the listeners, I think that's important to remember that you have to be open, but you have to be intelligent about being open. It's not just being naive, right?
No, that's right. And I think one of the other things is you don't want to let desperation
drive your decisions, right? Yeah.
Drive decisions. And I think we were talking off camera that you've got to have some basic, I don't know what you call it, ethics or morals or whatever it is, that there's got to be a place where you're principled, and don't ever leave your principles.
And yeah, you and I were talking in pre-show that there's that purpose, when you really are leaning into your purpose. And Richard talks about this as well, that that it's almost like the closer you get to the summit, at least that summit that day or that cycle of your life, it's almost like the more difficult the climb becomes to really test, are you going to stay true to your principles? Are you going to stay true to your beliefs? Or are you going to take the side path and just stay here on the side of the hill, right? I mean, if you truly want to experience what it is to live your purpose, that's not going to be the easy road, right? There probably isn't a path, and you're going to have to do your own climbing and figure out where the top is.
Yeah, and I think the other thing at least guides me. I'm financially successful now, and quite frankly, I don't need to see patients.
Right.
And that's not where my income comes. In fact, I actually lose money seeing patients.
Right, of course, time-wise, yeah, of course, right.
Yeah, no, I mean literally, my office loses money.
Right. Wow.
Seeing patients. To this day.
Wow.
And you go, well, what an idiot. And I have a number of friends who claim that they see patients, but in fact, I know personally that they've long since stopped seeing patients. And, I'll talk to them, and they say, you're such an idiot. Stop seeing patients.
Right.
You don't need to. And I said, you don't understand. I need to see patients because that's where I learn. It's called the practice of medicine for a reason. And, I've learned, every one of my books is really based on something I've learned that I didn't know that seeing patients has taught me. And so even though seeing patients loses me money monetarily, every single day I lose money seeing patients. And yet, I keep doing it because I learned things that are going to, number one, educate me, which is the real drive. But the things I learn, I write in a book, and writing books makes me money. And I develop a supplement based on what I've had my patients do that hopefully makes me money.
Right.
But the money's not driving it. It's my dumb, and wanting to take care of patients.
Yeah. And I get that. And again, that's why Richard and I were both just floored by our first interview with you, because I think we both got that. We both felt your passion. We felt your heart. We felt your drive. And even as we're sitting here having the conversation today, I mean, I literally feel emotion in my body, emotion in my chest, because I'm just so in alignment with what you're saying, and so really I'm humbled to be able to have this conversation with you, because I truly can feel how much you care about people. And that's just, I love being in the space of being with people like that, right? Because I get what you're, I just so honor, I guess, what you're doing and why you're doing it, and understand that it's truly, it's so in alignment with who you are as a human being. At least that's the way it feels from this side of the camera.
Yeah, I don't know any other way. I mean, for instance, back in the days when we were doing baby heart transplants, my partner and I would fly all night to harvest a heart somewhere, in the United States, and fly back and put it in, and lost a lot of sleep. And no one ever paid us for those heart transplants. We made no money.
Is that right?
Wasn't paid for.
Huh.
We did it. Yeah, I mean, the jets were donated to us by, corporations.
Right.
And, we never made a cent, even though, we'd be up for 48 hours, losing sleep. Why? Because these babies, without us, had no chance,
Wow.
chance to live. And so, not getting paid and not getting any sleep, and then 26 years later, get a picture of a grown man marrying the love of his life, and you go, you can't pay me
Right.
enough money
Right.
to do that, And I made the mistake years ago. I was on ABC 2020, and in the height of these transplants, and I said, I said, can you believe it? People actually pay me to be a heart surgeon, and I said, gosh, I'll do this for free, like for the babies. And then the nurses the next day said, great, you want to work for free.
Right.
So I want you to, we want all your salary because you want to work for free. I said, hey,
Not quite what I meant.
Didn't choose my words properly.
Right.
But but that's my passion.
Well, that's amazing, and I'm so again humbled and grateful that you came back on, because I know this isn't, and I believe this isn't a story that you really shared that much.
Really once before. Yeah.
Okay, and so and to me it's so important because I think you're doing great work, but I think it's even more, I guess it makes it more understandable and connects some dots as far as why you're doing the work that you're doing, and that it's more than just the financial gain. It's more than even just seeing patients. It's truly your passion of helping people live better lives, and then sharing that information. As to your point, you're a researcher, so what you learn, then you turn around and share, and that's I hope that that's where the world's headed, right? I hope that that's where the world's headed, is more people like you that are truly living their purpose, sharing their gifts, and then empowering people to do better and to live their purpose as well, right? So not only are you helping people, and that's really how I want to connect the show today, is it's not that you're just, what you're doing to help people physically is incredible, but also just the story of who you are and why you're doing it and what drives you, I think links it up so that not only are we healing the physical body, but we're also starting to heal the mental and spiritual side of our life, which is, the more we come into alignment, the more things start to also open up and happen to us to provide financially, to provide abundance in our lives, to provide more love, support, whatever needs to flow in our lives when we're closer and closer to that purpose.
Yeah, it's funny, when Gundry MD began to take off, my longtime lawyer, he says, every now and then the good guy does win. and he says, bless your heart. He says, I've been so many years, putting up with you and knowing, the slogs we've been through. He says, every now and then the good guy wins.
Love those cynical lawyers. Well, so I know our time, and thank you for all the time you've given us today. You've got a new book coming out, you said in March, Unlocking the Keto Code.
Yep. It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like you're going to challenge the normal, or what's been believed to be keto, and
correct.
Yeah.
People, think of me as a disruptor, and certainly The Plant Paradox was a disrupting book. Unlocking the Keto Code, I think, is the next major disruptor that I'm going to introduce. Quite frankly, I've had ketogenic programs in all my books, and people are kind of shocked with my ketogenic programs in my book, because there's actually a lot of resistant starches, carbohydrates that would seem to have no place in a ketogenic diet, a high-fat diet. And you're going to find out that ketones are actually one of the worst fuel sources ever designed. They're horrible as a fuel source.
Yeah, I think you're gonna. I think you're gonna get on some more podcasts and some more shows with that stance.
Yeah, actually, let me give you this one little teaser.
Please do. I am here as long as you want to be here today.
Yeah,
so
and then
please
I gotta
do.
go.
Okay.
So one teaser.
Yeah.
Work from the late 1970s at Harvard in human beings showed that on a full ketogenic diet, in full ketosis, that only 30% of the energy in a human being is generated by burning ketones, only 30%. The rest is generated by free fatty acids and glucose. Even at full ketosis, the brain is only capable of getting 70% of its needs met by ketones. It still needs 30% fuel from glucose. So the idea that ketones are some miraculous form of energy is completely wrong. Human studies prove it's wrong, but ketones do not work by being a source of energy. They work as a signaling molecule. And the really cool thing is there are multiple other substances that have nothing to do with fat that provide the same signal without all the misery and deprivation of a ketogenic diet. And that's unlocking the Keto Code.
Love it. I love it. So, and that comes out in March?
March 8th.
Perfect.
And it's available for pre-order now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you find your books.
Perfect. I love it. So, again, Dr. Steven Gundry, always excited to have you on the show. Always a great visit and a great show. So people can find you best by going to, you want to help us with, and we'll put all this in the show links, but is it GundryMD.com? GundryMD.com, drgundry.com. I've got the Dr. Gundry podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Podcast One Network. 2 YouTube channels. Find me on Instagram. You're a very popular guy.
If I don't show up on your internet somewhere, I'm doing a horrible job.
Well, you show up in my feed all the time because I've clicked on your stuff and watched your stuff. So yeah, you and I are basically seeing each other every day. You just don't know it.
All right, I'll just wait.
Well, I appreciate again.
I'll pull my ear like Carol Burnett.
There you go. I appreciate.
Then you'll know.
I will know. I'll watch for that. I will. I appreciate your time today, and we look forward to visiting with you when your new book comes out. Please come back on, and we'll love to unpack that and discuss that one as well.
Great. Have great holidays.
Thank you. You as well.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Next Level Method podcast. If you found some value in this, tell somebody about the show. Tell your friends, tell your spouse, tell your kids, let them know all about Next Level Method. And go to nextlevelmethod.com to learn more and join our community. Thanks for tuning in.